Athens 2,400 years ago. It's a compact place. Only about 250,000 people live here. There are fine baths, theatres, temples, shopping arcades and gymnasiums. It's warm for more than half the year. This is also home to the world's first true and probably greatest philosopher, Plato. Born into a prominent and wealthy family in the city, Plato devoted his life to one goal: helping people to reach a state of what he termed eudaimonia, or fulfillment. Plato is often confused with Socrates. Socrates was an older friend who taught Plato a lot but didn't write any books. Plato wrote lots of them, 36, all dialogues, beautifully crafted scripts of imaginary discussions in which Socrates is always allotted a starring role, among them the Republic, the Symposium, the Laws, the Meno and the Apology. Plato had 4 big ideas for making life more fulfilled. First big idea: think more. We rarely give ourselves time to think carefully and logically about our lives and how to lead them. Sometimes we just go along with what the Greeks called doxa, or popular opinions. In the 36 books he wrote, Plato showed this common sense to be riddled with errors, prejudice and superstition. Fame is great, follow your heart, money is the key to a good life. The problem is, popular opinions edge us towards the wrong values, careers and relationships. Plato's answer is, know yourself. It means doing a special kind of therapy, philosophy, subjecting your ideas to examination rather than acting on impulse. If you strengthen your self-knowledge, you don't get so pulled around by feelings. Plato compared the role of our feelings to being dragged dangerously along by a group of wild horses. In honor of his mentor and friend Socrates, this kind of examination is called a Socratic discussion. You can have it with yourself, or ideally with another person who isn't trying to catch you out, but wants to help you clarify your own ideas. Second big idea: let your lover change you. That sounds weird if you think that love means finding someone who wants you just the way you are. In a Symposium, Plato's play about a dinner party where a group of friends drink too much and get talking about love, sex and relationships, Plato says, true love is admiration. People shouldn't love each other exactly as they are right now. They should be committed to educating each other and to enduring the stormy passages this inevitably involves. Each person should want to seduce the other into becoming a better version of themselves. 3. Decode the message of beauty. Everyone pretty much likes beautiful things, but Plato was the first to ask, why do we like them? He found a fascinating reason. Beautiful objects are whispering important truths to us about the good life. We find things beautiful when we unconsciously sense in them qualities we need but are missing in our lives. Gentleness, harmony, balance, peace, strength. Beautiful objects therefore have a really important function. They help to educate our souls. Ugliness is a serious matter too. It parades dangerous and damaged characteristics in front of us. It makes it harder to be wise, kind and calm. Plato sees art as therapeutic. It's the duty of poets and painters and nowadays novelists, TV producers and designers to help us to live good lives. 4. Reform society. Plato spent a lot of time thinking how the government and society should ideally be. He was the world's first utopian thinker. In this, he was inspired by Athens' great rival, Sparta. This was a city-sized machine for turning out great soldiers. Everything the Spartans did, how they raised their children, how their economy was organized, whom they admired, and Sparta was hugely successful from a military point of view. But that wasn't Plato's concern. He wanted to know, how could a society get better at producing not military power, but fulfilled people? In his book, The Republic, Plato identifies a number of changes that should be made. Plato therefore wanted to give Athens new celebrities, replacing the current crop with ideally wise and good people he called guardians, models for everyone's good development. These people would be distinguished by their record of public service, their modesty and simple habits, their dislike of the limelight, and their wide and deep experience. They would be the most honoured and admired people in society. He also wanted to end democracy in Athens. He wasn't crazy. He just observed how few people think properly before they vote, and therefore we get very substandard rulers. He didn't want to replace democracy with a horrid dictatorship, but he wanted to prevent people from voting until they'd started to think rationally. That is, until they'd become philosophers. Otherwise, government would just be a kind of mob rule. To help the process, Plato started a school, the Academy, in Athens, which lasted a good 300 years. There, pupils learnt not just maths and spelling, but also how to be good and kind. His ultimate goal was that politicians should become philosophers. The world will not be right, he said, until kings become philosophers or philosophers kings.
Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute Philosopher. I am Massimo Pigliucci from the City University of New York, and I am your guide to the series of short videos about what philosophy is and how it works. There are often discussions these days about what philosophy is, whether it makes progress, and whether its purpose has perhaps been superseded by science. Some prominent scientists, like physicists Stephen Hawking and Lawrence Krauss, have said in public that philosophy is dead because all sensible questions either have been or will eventually be answered by science. If this were true, philosophers would do better to get out and just have a beer. There are many reasons why Hawking and Krauss are actually wrong, but in this video we are instead going to explore what philosophy is, how it works, and how it differs from other allied disciplines, including science. To do this, we will embark in a brief conceptual history of the field to see how philosophy itself has changed and continues to change over time. As is well known, philosophy began in ancient Greece. Around 635 before the current era, people started asking questions about the nature of the world and our place in it. First came the so-called pre-Socratics, including Thales, Anaximander, and Anaximenes. And of course, the dream team of ancient philosophy, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. What most of these thinkers had in common is that they practiced a type of philosophy that was at the same time ethics, logic, mathematics, metaphysics, and science, all rolled into one. However, Already one of the pre-Socratics, Pythagoras, and one of the members of the Dream Team, Aristotle, made progress towards spinning off two major areas of inquiry from the initially all-inclusive philosophy: mathematics and logic. Pythagoras' mathematics was very much mixed with his metaphysics, but his lasting mathematical discoveries are still taught today as milestones of Western thought. As for Aristotle, he codified the beginnings of logic, which, even though it is still taught in philosophy departments, has now become a largely independent discipline in its own right. Skipping a good number of centuries, we arrive at the so-called scientific revolution, the time when science, then called natural philosophy, began to split off from philosophy proper, in part with the help of mathematics. This is the time of Galilei and Newton, among others, both of which incidentally considered themselves philosophers. The word scientist was not invented until 1834 by a philosopher of all people. What about core philosophy? A towering figure of this period is Immanuel Kant, who kept writing about the areas of philosophy still untouched by science, like ethics, aesthetics, and metaphysics, while at the same time trying to bring the rigor of science into philosophy itself. Some philosophers took a particular tendency in Kant's writings and developed it further away from both science and traditional philosophy. Writers like Nietzsche, Heidegger, Sartre, and Foucault, to name a few, are now considered to engage in a type of philosophy that is called continental, because it historically developed in continental Europe, especially France and Germany. Continental philosophy is stylistically closer to literary criticism than it is to classical philosophy, and it is very much concerned with social and political issues. It is also characterized by a degree of skepticism toward science, particularly in the writings of feminist philosophers like Sandra Harding. At the beginning of the 20th century, yet another major way of doing philosophy developed, what is nowadays referred to as analytical philosophy, the brainchild of scholars like G. E. Moore, Bertrand Russell, and Wittgenstein, among others. Analytic philosophers are very different from continental ones, in that they are interested in the analysis of language and informal logic. They are also much more friendly to science, and they think that philosophy needs to take seriously what science has to say about issues like metaphysics, for instance. Another important development to keep in mind is that during the 20th century, philosophy has become more and more specialized, just like any other academic discipline, including science itself. This specialization has brought about a new phenomenon, the rise of the philosophies of. Take, for instance, science. By now, it is certainly a field completely independent from philosophy, but one can still ask questions about how science itself works or doesn't work. In other words, one can do philosophy of science. Similarly, there are several other philosophies of mind, of language, of mathematics, and so on. Indeed, there are even philosophies of specific subfields of science, like philosophy of physics and philosophy of biology. So here is what the historical conceptual map of philosophy looks like. Philosophy, just like any other discipline, has evolved over time. Progress has been made both within philosophy itself, for instance by exploring different ethical systems or rejecting certain metaphysical positions, and in the sense that philosophy has given birth to new disciplines that have in turn made progress on their own, like mathematics and science.
Kita belajar kritis, kita belajar menerima tanggung jawab.
I can't go with that girl! I have to get back to my dad! Daddy! Help me!
Nobody touch him! Nobody touch him.
Can you help me?
No. You get yourself in there, you can get yourself out.
Gil...
I just want to see him do it, okay? Calm down. Now, alternate wiggling your fins and your tail.
I can't! I have a bad fin!
Never stop me. Just think about what you need to do. perfect.
It's Herman!